Covering over 3,200 acres of the southern New Mexico landscape are 168,000 pecan trees owned by Stahmanns Incorporated, a lush oasis in the middle of the desert. These trees produce 8 to 9 million pounds of pecans a year and are shipped out to customers from around the globe. They are one of the largest producers of pecans in the world. Pecan trees are part of what is known as the walnut family, but despite their reputation, pecans are technically not nuts. They're a type of fruit known as drupes. This is the same classification as peaches, nectarines, and cherries. Pecan trees can produce a crop every year for over a century. However, most of the trees on the Stahmann farms have yet to celebrate their centennial. Pecans are a fickle fruit and need the utmost expert care to yield a productive harvest, which is just what the Stahmanns have been doing for over 70 years. At first glance, it appears to be a normal day on the Stahmann pecan farms, but this particular fall morning is anything but. Today is the first day of the harvest season, and the first step of the process is in full swing. With a large hydraulic arm, the branches of each tree will be shaken until all the pecans have fallen to the ground, where they can be more easily gathered. After the shakers have been retired, the resulting litter of pecans, leaves, and branches is swept up into even rows between the trees. These piles will be gathered by a fleet of harvesters. The mixture is tossed into and stored in a receptacle towed by the tractors. To speed up the process and maximize the efficiency of the sweepers, they get a bit of help taking the pecans to the next step. Small dump trucks zip between the harvester and trees. When one of the receptacles is full, these little guys will follow behind the sweepers and another conveyor belt transfers the load. This is called a continuous harvesting system. With their payloads full, the pecan mixture is taken to the final step in the farming process. The pecans are dumped into an elevator that fills up the red trailers. Each trailer holds up to 11,000 pounds of pecans. Finally, after a long morning of shaking, sweeping, and gathering, the pecans are whisked off the farms for processing. The next stop is the sorting plant, where the valuable cash crop will be separated from the excess dirt and debris. Towering above the pecan orchards is a Goliath tower. This is the sorting plant, where the pecans will be separated from the branches, leaves, and other debris that was picked up in the harvesting process. The sorting plant operates by lifting the entire mixture to the highest point in the tower. As the pecans fall, a series of filters separates them from the rest of the unwanted debris. A network of vents and conveyor belts assures that none of the crop will be lost or contaminate the cleaner levels below it. The nuts must then be separated into sizes. To accomplish this, the pecans pass through into a heavy metal drum. As the nuts tumble downward, they roll over progressively larger slots. The smallest pecans fall first, while the larger ones pass right over until they reach a slot large enough for them to fall through. Pecans are crated together by size. This will speed up the next part of the process, removing the rich inner meat of the pecan from the hard outer shell. Inside the shelling plant is a vast mechanical labyrinth of conveyor belts and machinery. It can all be very disorienting to visitors. Only occasionally pecans are visible for a moment before disappearing again into a machine. The meat of a pecan is divided into two halves. The objective of the shelling plant is to keep the two pieces intact during processing. It's the most popular way to eat pecans. This process is over 80% effective, meaning around 8 out of 10 pecans will be cracked without damaging either half. All of the pecans from the sorting plant begin the shelling process here. All of the dust and soil accumulated from farming, sorting, and transportation must be washed off. The water and conditioner helps in another way as well. The moisture level in the pecan must be brought to a specific point so that the machinery can properly shell the nuts. The pecans will soak in these tanks until they have absorbed the correct amount of water. After the nuts have been properly hydrated, they are poured onto a conveyor belt which brings them to the cracker. A small bucket chain carries the pecan to the cracking chamber of the machine. The nut is cupped by 2 small pieces of metal, where a quick blow from a piston snaps the shell. This device will individually shell approximately 450 pecans per minute. That was the easy part. The rest of the building is dedicated to separating the edible bits from the hard shell. Both pecan meat and shell go into the machine. Depending on the size of the nut being processed, the workers can engage how large the piece coming out should be. However, not every pecan will make the cut. Now that the pecan meat is out of its protective shell, special precautions must be taken to make sure they are dry. Pecans that retained too much moisture will have a different taste. A sample will be taken out for a hydration test. If a batch is too wet, it must be recorded here and sent to a dryer. Back in the main wing of the plant, the pecan halves are almost separated from the pieces of shell. From here on, the processing will be carried out by hand. A fleet of workers stand by picking out pieces of shell or broken pecans. Only complete halves are to be kept for this specific batch. The pecans are boxed up and weighed. Extras will be either added or subtracted to bring the box to its weight requirement. As one final precaution, each package slides through a metal detector to find any foreign objects that may have contaminated the package. Some of the pecans will be sent to other companies and distributors around the country. After a long winter, the pecan fields are receiving their first big drink of the year. Rainwater is diverted from the Rio Grande through a series of canals that stretch for hundreds of miles through the orchards. Throughout the year, the pecans will need constant care to ensure a productive crop. The farmers rigorously test the soil, clean the fields, and keep the trees watered and parasite-free all year long. The challenge of keeping a pecan orchard is exhausting, but the payoff is worth every moment. In a few months' time, these pecans will be ripe for harvesting, and the cycle will begin again.